for this session, which in my view is very, very important. It's a very important session to be talking about, especially when you consider the Black culture and our history as a people. And therefore, it's always an important thing to talk about the process of documenting stories, writing about our lives, writing about things that we feel passionate about, and trying to make sure that the people that are coming behind us can have something to hold on to and to know that at least there were people here and they left something behind for generations that are coming, at least to have something. And so I'd like to welcome all of you, our panelists, and to welcome all the people that have joined us. And I know that there may be others who may join us a bit later, and those that are on Facebook and on Zoom. And thank you so much for joining us. I'd like to welcome all of you to this session called the Celebration of Writers and Writing. All right. The purpose of this session is to basically just encourage writing, but also to learn more about the people that have done it, writing books, just to learn what they did, how they did it, what challenges they met, and thirdly, to inspire others who might be there. I've spoken to so many people who've got great stories to tell, stories that no one would ever know until someone puts it on the paper and writes it. And I mean, we all have various histories, personal, family, and community histories that we can document. And so the best thing that we can do is to learn from others about their processes, their challenges. And so now we have these 3 writers here who have produced books. If you visit our libraries or bookshops, I mean, even now you can go to any of them, you'd find that a lot of the books that are there, I mean, these books that are behind me, a lot of them were written by Americans and Europeans and so on. And so we have to change that. And I know that there are historical factors behind it, but I don't think we can use that anymore. We now have our history and our future within our hands. And so, and we're witnessing a growth in this area, growth of writing, growth of writers. I mean, you sometimes look at these bookshops and you see, okay, the numbers are growing. And so joining that number or leading among those people that are numbered are you, my panelists. So I'm going to start by introducing Beauty Chawekas Kotela. She is based in East London, and she has authored, I think, 2 books, a devotional journal, I remember well, for young women, and a book called The Theatre of Grace, where she deals with this, I think, with other ladies as well. And so she's going to tell us a bit more about those books and the whole process that she went through. And secondly, we've got Madoda Dinginto Mfundisi Bele. He is based in Cape Town and has authored a number of books. I was actually surprised to realize that he has written a number of books, some of them in school, for school work and so on, both in English and isiXhosa. And he will shortly share with us a bit more about these books that he has written. I can just mention the ones that I have seen, at least I think I've seen this one, Kuphilwa Ngamntu, Khula Ambani. Those are some of the books that he has written. Then we've got Umhlekazi. He is known as Umhlekazi. Because he likes calling people Umhlekazi, and so people push it back to him. So but his name is Hlanga Mafani Chawe. He's also based in East London, and he has written a book called From Genesis to Generation. And this book chronicles Black contribution to the spreading of the gospel, especially in the Eastern Cape broadly. But in the book, he touches on other aspects as well. And he will share a bit more about that. And I'd like to encourage all our viewers to please just submit their questions or comments on the various platforms that we have here. Now, let me go straight to the questions for our panelists. Let me go straight to the questions to our panelists. All right, so we've discussed how the questions are going to be, but you have written books, guys. But before we hear about the books that you've written, tell us a bit about yourself. We're interested to know what about yourself that sparked the writing gene or the writing spark that gave you the sense that you need to write, how you develop your interest in writing. And as we talk, let's just talk, people can chip in as you see fit. Just tell us about yourself, who you are, where you're from, and so on. How was your formative life? How did your formative life contribute, if at all, to writing, or it didn't at all? Maybe some of you had books, had parents that had written a number of books, or whatever the case may be. Maybe, Mamchild, let's start with you. Let's start with you.
I was sitting here laughing.
Yes.
I was sitting here laughing. I knew it was going to start with me.
I'm trying to break.
Ladies first.
Amachawe, so.
I knew ladies first. All right. Thank you, Brapet. As introduced, my name is Beauty Kotela, coming to you now from East London, and I'm originally from this side.
Hey,
just to say. Yes, sir. Just to introduce, look, I'm a teacher by profession, so I'm in the space of knowledge, and when I came, I think, into the church and started participating in information sharing, I learned that there's so much information that comes and goes. If you stand and you make a presentation, Rapet, you work 2 weeks on a particular concept, and you go there and present it on a particular day, that becomes the end of that information. It's presented, it's over and done with. And you start to forget it, and other people start to forget it. I think we do not keep information. So I've always had that burden that, I think we are churning information too fast, that we do not hold on and keep, or at least build on some of the things that we've spoken about. So I've always had that discomfort. But when we were in Cape Town, for 5 years, from 2011, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. I came across this DASA chapter in Cape Town, and I would often, speak at some of their functions. And through that, I got involved in this book. Some of you might remember this book. Yes. This was, people call it the Papu book, but remember, this was the J. Papu. Yes. Essays on Adventist thinking in South Africa.
I remember.
So I was a contributor there. Yes. There were a few of us, Pastor Mudiri. It was edited by Professor Kanyane. So a few of us wrote there, Pet Matabeni, Tulankosi, and others. So that's how I got into writing. So I remember, and I will talk about this some other time, at some point it was so hard, I think it was 2017, that I wanted to pull out of the project. It was hard for me personally. I was going through so much hard time. And the gentleman would not let me pull out. But we'll talk about those challenges. So that is how I got into the possibility that I actually, not only have I got something to say, but it could be put down on paper. And then I think a year later, I then, from conversations with young women, they were looking for ways to to develop and to grow a relationship with Christ, I then put this together. It's really a workbook, this one. You won't be able to see it. It's a workbook where it's a very gentle way to teach young women to develop a relationship with Christ. And we called it Conversations Between the King and His Daughters. So I speak once a month, and then the rest of the month I give just short verses. They do the speaking. The conversation then becomes between them and the Father. But my latest book project is then this one, which I'm very excited about, and one of the authors is here. This is the book, Theatre of Grace.
Okay.
Yes, which we launched in November 2019. Okay, and I'm not the only author there. There's a few of us, 14 of us, that shared our grace stories. And I'm very proud of this project, and we're continuing this conversation. Incidentally, from next week, we're continuing to talk about the contents of this book. One of the contributors is here, actually, Umamtika Pagaden. She's also here in this.
Welcome.
Let me stop there, Brapet, and let others continue.
All right. Thank you so much, Chawegas. And then we can break this. Then the Chawe, let's come to you. Just tell us a bit about yourself, and then as Chawegas has done. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you very much now for this opportunity in the Fumanayo. I just want to greet everyone that is listening and the ones that have been that joining us now. Njengomadoda Tingindo ibele chazumbula umbutho khaya ke sedibini eseshephu lamhlaba unenca mhlaba namathamsanqa. But I grew up in Cape Town, up in Gugulethu, the out here Sekasi. I grew up in the Boy Scout. So hiking, camping, notting, wrestling, Zindo's armies. So it was part of my life. Also, I was a photographer when I grew up. Especially in high school, so I was taking photos from time to time, and actually a small business that I had at the time. So I was exposed to different occasions, meeting a lot of faces along the way. I also grew up as an athlete, and we used to travel around the Western Cape for athletic meetings and races. Utamzuli Wenyama, he was my coach. He was my coach. I remember I joined his club, Pai Gugulethu Athletic Club, in 1977. So yeah, that was a long time ago. And also one of my pillars as I grew up in a Christian home. My father trained me to preach at a very early age. So at the age of 9, I'm preaching already. One of the strong platforms that I actually developed my writing abilities was the love of reading books. I used to love reading. I enjoyed reading Incwadi as a Xhosa and also as English. One of the books that I remember that I read in English, it is the power of positive thinking, something like that.
Yes.
So
Norman.
Yeah, very, very, very good that I read in English. And in Xhosa, one of the author that inspired me very much was Utata Witness K. Thamsanqa. I remember reading Incwadi yakhe yamavu, that is the essay book yakhe eyayisithi Imitha Yelanga. So that is one book that actually spoke to me, saying to me that you could be a writer. So yeah. So in 1990, I remember I was at the college, a teacher training college at that time. I wrote a poem. So I took that poem to my lecturer at the time, Mrs. Stone, and she actually suggested that, you know what, you could develop this, you know, and make it a book for children. Indeed, I wrote a book. It was a one manuscript when I actually wrote it. But when I went to the publisher, it was actually happened to be 2 books.
Okay.
Book 5 and book 6 for grade 1s. As you can see, this one is Fluffy Puppy Tells Her Story. It is a book for the grade 1s, and this one is Landless Puppy.
Oh, okay.
So this was my first publication in 1994, followed by this one in 1997. And what happened is that they took the 2 books and incorporated it to this one. As you can see that it was being prepared for curriculum 2005.
Okay.
So I also contributed then when there was a change in curriculum. So this book was actually used in schools then. I don't know whether it's still used in schools, but it's a reader for the grade 1s.
So you've been in this thing for quite a while, eh?
And Ivan?
You've been in this thing for quite a while.
Yes. I've done this for yes. And then I also wrote, I wanted to write in isiXhosa because their standard is Xhosa. So I wrote stories. And at that time, I was encouraged by Professor Mkondo to attend writers' meetings. I remember traveling from here in Cape Town to Port Elizabeth, sometimes for the meetings. So I began to write a book, isiXhosa. And remember that time we were taught that if you are good in short story writing, keep to that. And then if you're a novelist, then you can actually continue to write stories and novels. So I was inspired by a lot of writers like Mr. Kabanyana, as I said, Otatu Mkondo, Baninzi, Nom Sasaracho. Right. So, and then I wrote a book, Kupilonam, you spoke about it.
Okay.
Yeah. I wrote this book. It's a book, as you can see, up and over, and same novel. It's in front of the yeah. That's isono siyalenzakalisa.
Usemhle nangoku umthanjiswa ungabona.
So, and I wrote this book, and this book was prescribed for schools. It was published in 1997, and then it was prescribed for schools in 2002. I don't know whether it's still in schools even today, but it was a set work for learners. I remember 2013, the grade 12s where this was part of their paper for the paper in 2013. So I don't know whether it's still in schools, but this is a short story book.
Okay.
Okay. So for 2000, I had this desire that I want to write in religion, cycles. So I wanted to write a devotional book for the whole year. I started it in 2000, but there was a long break from 2000 to 2019. So during that time, when I actually wanted to write from 2000, I had a number of books that I've written, but that are incomplete. So I won't talk about them. Yeah, and then last year, I decided to take a 31-day book, which is cooler.
Okay.
So this is a Xhosa devotional book, a 31-day devotional book, written in isiXhosa. I so wanted to have this kind of a book in isiXhosa because I don't remember, maybe I'm subject to correction here, that we have any book that is devotional, that is in our vernacular languages. I don't know, but I think this is the first of its kind. Yeah. So I've written this book. Of course, that when are you going to produce something in English? We want to read what we have written, but please bring an English version. And I'm happy to announce that maybe in a week or two, Grow is going to come out.
Wow, okay.
So there is this book also that has been prepared in English now. The 31-day devotional. Okay. Then lastly, this year, I also established this one. Also, I also wanted that when I was at school at Helderberg, we were actually reading in school thick books about the preachers or the legends of the gospel in America and in other places, you know. So I said to myself, well, almost our old men, Otatus Krasha, Otatumani, people that we can learn from, people that we can write something about, then we can actually produce books that can be read by our by the others that are coming after us. So I decided to do a conversation with Tatus Krasha. Tatus Krasha is 96 years old now.
Wow.
And he started to preach in 1947. Sure. And he's still preaching today. Usama is preaching today. So I decided to write a book, not about him, not about the history of the church, but about, which would say it's a gospel of evangelism according to Tatus Krasha.
Okay.
So I call this book, and I also produced this in English as well, Go Ye Therefore. Okay. So this were published this year. So this is how far I've gone in writing thus far. I think Mandime up.
Wow, Siyabulela for that. Thank you so much. I'd like to welcome the people that have just joined us as we had started already. So thank you so much. I can see there's Simpiwe Stasa. I don't know whether he's related. Simpiwe Stasa. I'm not sure about this. Wow, Stasa. Thank you so much. Oh, hopefully he will write a book as well, so that we can get more status on the map of writing. Thank you, Kaku, and others. All right, Kegas, let's go to you now. Can you please just take us through as the others have done?
Okay, but I think I'll be the shortest because it's so wonderful to see how people have written books and their journey to where they are now.
Yes.
But well, I can start by saying I'm, by the way, Mulweni Nonke, and let me start by saying I became a writer by default. and I started writing because I've had a lot of history of how the Black Adventists have contributed to the spreading of the Adventism.
Yes.
And I grew up Bofolo, Port Beaufort.
Okay, so can I just ask the people that are speaking to just mute their phones, please, or their computers? Or let me put it like this: those that are not speaking, can we please? Yes, the person in the car. I think it's yeah. Thank you so much. Sounds better now. Daniel, go ahead.
Okay. So I'm switching mine off now so that it may not disturb.
Okay.
And I became therefore a writer by default by listening. I grew up in Fort Beaufort. There was this old pastor called Watson Magalela. And Pastor Watson Magalela was the son of one of the Adventist pioneers, A.T. Magalela. A.T. Magalela was a pastor in the 30s who got converted to Adventism while he was interpreting at Temba School in Ngushwa. And I kept on asking, why is this history only known by people like Umfundisi Magalela? And he would narrate it so nicely, and I would listen, and I kept on asking why the people of the church. Of course, we looked up to some matured spiritually, academically, and otherwise, that those people would be able to write. And because I was still at varsity at the time, and at varsity, I also happened to attend one of the talks that was organized by the varsity, where you had the continental writers. I think Chinua Achebe was one of those writers who was there, listening there, how they've gone through, why it's important to write, how it reflects in the past, how that would shape the future and the mentality of the people and so forth. But then I still didn't have any desire to write. And I came to Cape Town, you know, and I heard of one Tata, Utatu Vanyaza, the late, you know, Tatu Yugutwana, who also had this, you know, information. And then I decided to, you know what? Oh, by the way, while still at the youth age, I remember I was one of those people who would argue during those afternoon programs at church, you know, and I was so controversial in a way to the elders, you know, asking about why the tithe is like this, why the church has adopted this stance in terms of race relations, in terms of why are we the peculiar, are we not all equal before the sight of God, and all those things, and how the music and so forth. So I was coming with that mind of youth, the church has developed, and I thought I was interested actually in writing in the development of the church.
Okay.
But somehow, I asked myself a question. Well, if I'm writing from the youth perspective of how the church has developed, and at the end, by the time I write, there would be more developments, of course. And also ask myself, if I keep on asking, why is this not recorded? At some point in life, I will be the one that will be asked, why didn't you write this? You know, obviously there will be people looking up to us as elderly now. So I then decided, you know what, I think this should be documented. So I started to document, and I thought I was going to only document and write something about the Eastern Cape. But then I said, Eastern Cape and Western Cape are the same thing. So, and because we would keep on referring, this person then moved, or this person was from the Western Cape, and then you would have to follow that lead. And then, so it happened with the Northern Cape. So therefore, the book is actually premised in the Cape, as known in the old British era colony, Cape Colony, which Cape Colony included all what today are the Capes: Northern Cape, Eastern Cape, and Western Cape, covering the Kimberley, Freihead, in the Northern Cape and so forth. So that's how I became a writer by default, and I've written one book from Genesis to Germination. The title of the book is entitled so because I seek to address as to how did this all happen? How did it start? That is from Genesis. Genesis is where everything, and to germination. How did it grow? How did it germinate? How did it spread? And so that we may have a sense of where it all started. But if I can tell you, I've realized after I've written the book that actually, you see, I should have dug deeper, because more and more information is coming up to say that actually the roots that you're talking about are not where they started. They actually started deeper than where you have started. So that's how I actually started to write the book.
Okay, thank you, Mhlekazi. I'm tempted to ask you to just tell us a bit about, because you wrote in your book about, you know, uNtsikane and how he was used by God and all of that. Are you ready to just share a little on that? Just because I'm sure many people are interested as they are listening. I mean, you traced quite a lot of the way that in the Eastern Cape God worked among people who were living their lives, and because the reason I'm saying this is because of the sense you get that, you know, God only came to Africa when the colonialists came. So do you want just to say something briefly about Tsikane? that you can remember?
Well, what about Nsikane? You know, I used to work for the Eastern Cape Development Agency, which was then called Sky Small Business at the time, and my area covered Mushwa, you know, Pikoli, Ndlambe, and so forth. And when I got to these areas, I would be, you know, the elderly people like Utata Upitoli would tell us, you know what, there happened this, there happened that. And in Mushwa, there is Igocha, the river, and they will tell you, the people, that, you know, Eligocha, it's where actually it comes from, far where Nsikane, you know, used to, when he became converted, and to take off the red oak, and then so that he may show the symbol of being converted to Christianity. And then when you go, you pass Hlosini, and then you go to the areas of Kamnyana. Just before you get there, when you get there, not very far from the Umkwashini of Amamfengu, where on the 14th of May, 1834, Amamfengu made a vow to say that and making that vow to the British colonial rule. And not far from there, you would get a sign to say where Nsikane used to stay, you know. And then I went there and saw. And then at Buffalo, I began to do. By the way, do you know that the grave of Nsikane is right here next to Amankazana? And I drove to the grave of Nsikane and I saw, and then this thing kept on growing to say, but if we have such a rich history around us of people who were pioneers in Christianity among the Africans, who show that they have not received this, of course, with the white missionaries supporting, but who were inspired by divine, you know, inspiration by the Holy Spirit, who saw. And why don't write about these things so that we may be able to showcase that as much as missionary work has done such a wonderful work in advancing Christianity, but God is a God that does not have any color. Okay. He appoints anyone that he wants to appoint to advance, and he can speak to him directly as he spoke to the prophets before.
Thank you so much, Mtegas. I thought I should tease you on that one so that at least you can give us a bit. You know, I see there's a message here from Nontsikelelo Gyasi. Where can we buy the books that these authors wrote or contributed to? We will get to that, Nontsikelelo. Just hang in there. They will tell us as to how you can get their books. But thank you so much for the question. And I want now to move a little bit forward with the questions. Now, you know, other people write for as their job. They are journalists. I'm sure, Mtegas, you worked in journalism before. Some of the things that you wrote, you were paid for. You know, other people write because they have to have a master's degree and so on. Others write for others and so on. But you guys wrote. And the reason why I asked that question before, I wanted to show our viewers and listeners about the ordinariness of all of you. You grew up just like everybody grew. You went through all the issues that we all went through, but you came up and wrote books. So the question that I want to find out from you now is that why write? You're not getting paid for this, you know. Well, I think when I'm Fundis, you may have gotten a bit here and there, but you had this thing. Why write? What's important about writing? You can come back to it because you mentioned briefly there and there, but why write? Why is it important for people to write about their lives? Anyone can go. Okay, go, Chawigas.
Okay.
I can see you moving. All right.
I thought Chawi was gonna come. But I write and I really hope to write. I've got a book in my head. It's full. I just need to put it down. I write to contribute an African voice to the narrative. in my space, and I'm hoping that others will do the same. I think you mentioned something, Rapet, and as you are sitting there, we've got this evidence right behind you of books written mainly from the West, and we take that information, and that's wonderful. We take that information and we consume it. As if we ourselves do not have anything to share. So one of the reasons why, I'll give a couple of reasons. The one is that I write to contribute to the narrative from the African perspective. You know, and this was my and I even wrote this somewhere in when we spoke about the book Theatre of Grace. That when it's nice, it's all well and good to talk about the God of Joseph. And the God of Jacob, and the God of Isaac, you know, it's well and good to talk about that. But the acts, the miraculous acts that God performed did not stop with those guys. Those acts He still performs with us today, with the ordinary men and women today. But often we do not talk about those stories. And I felt that, you know, when somebody hears a story about what happened in the Bible, it's beautiful, it's miraculous, you need the Holy Spirit, but it's got a historical element to it. You know, that was God then. Does God still do that today in the 21st century? Does God still perform those miracles? And we have 14 stories, just 14. And I mean, we have millions of stories to prove that fact. So I wanted to put an African concept to it, but also to bring life and newness to the concept of a God who continues to perform miracles. So that's the one reason that I wrote. Certainly, I came up with Theatre of Grace to say that the God that did that, can also be the God of beauty, can also be the God of you and the God of Tato or the God of Msiki, etc., etc. That's the first reason. The second reason that I write and I believe in us writing is to and I think I partly said it in my first answer, that we as Africans cannot only be receiving knowledge. You know, if we are sitting around the table as human beings, let's say as Christians, because most of us here are Christians, but just as human beings, if we are sitting around the table, when we as Africans do not write, when we do not put anything out there, it's as though whoever is chairing that conversation, the conversation about life, goes and says Brapet, and then now I'm Africa, skips me, right, and says Chow, and says Mfundisi, and says Patricia Jones, Tato, etc., etc. So when we as Africans do not contribute, it's as though we have been skipped in when they were taking turns as to who must speak. It's as though we have been skipped. And so that is one of the reasons why I write, and I encourage people to write. And I can tell you the number of books that I'm working on now, because since I've published books, I've had people come to say, can you help me with the editing? So I'm editing young women's books because they've got something to say, they've got stories to tell. And that's my third reason.
Okay.
We as Africans, my third reason, we have incredible stories to tell. Incredible stories to tell, and I want us to tell those stories.
Wow. And those stories do not all have to be spiritual. They could be historical, they could be motivational, they could be anything. We just need to write from our perspectives. Thank you so much.
I mean, if you think about it, Brapet, I don't know the others can say, I don't know what the right English word is. English once in a while jumps to America. We, in the evening at home, we used to sit around, and they would tell us stories. And I've been trying to think, might be able to help here. Where are those stories? Doesn't so me, yes, you know, fables. But in those fables, there was so much. We used to learn those lessons. All of those stories we used to be told. So we have stories as Africans, but we just didn't record them. We didn't write them down so that I can teach them to my children and my children can teach them to their children. And so the conversation continues, but Africans are also part of the conversation.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. I think the other element has been that even those that wrote, there was this sense that anything that's written by us is not good quality. And so even those that wrote their books, we never really got to know about those, you know. And so I think that's another point. Bella, you wanted to say something at this point.
You know, what also I was going to say is that we're writing because we need to write. There is something, as a Ballinger, there is something to write about. We have stories to tell, so we have to write. And each and everyone can write a book because there's a story to tell. So by writing, we're actually encouraging. We're actually picking or probing someone, say that, man, you have something. You know, one of the things that can actually help us to do that is to keep writing. And maybe later I would actually advise as to how to keep on doing that, because ukubhala is not something easy. It's difficult. It's something that is actually solitary, you know. But you can do it. So as was here, I will actually learn some tips as to how to keep on doing that. But we need to keep writing because we have stories. And we have those that are coming behind us, you know. So it's actually a disgrace for us, without
Okay, thank you. Carry on, Funis.
No, I was actually saying my last point is that it is a disgrace for us, but safe without leaving anything for the generations to come. We need to have something written down that this is the evidence that the case appeal.
Oh my God.
So we need actually to trace even those things bring them here because we're able to right now. So let us go and search for those things that has never been written. Bring them here, and then Abandon Abet will take it from where we left it for the future generation.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. In fact, a friend of mine and I were talking about Henry Wright. He's retired now, big guy, and we're also just comparing the fact that he's worldwide speaker and so on, but doing the same thing as Utatu Mani was doing, you know. But we don't hear anything about Abandu, Abalapa locally that we could. I'm going to give you now, Mtekazi, but I think there's a question here that says, if one has good stories but not a writer, how can I get the stories out for others to learn the history? And then thanks for explanation, Mem Beauty, the wonder of telling your own story. Thank you so much. Plegas, you wanted to just carry on. So as you guys answer, please remember these questions that keep popping up.
Okay, thanks, Mtekazi. As much as I have a journalistic background, writing news, but I didn't deem myself as a writer that could write books.
Okay.
That could write a book, and therefore probably that would be an answer, or one of the answers to the question. You've got good stories. Why don't you? But you've got good stories, but you're not a writer. If you've got good stories, and then you have Omam Chawe and others that will help you, that will edit. There's no book that just goes out and right from the writer right to the market. All books go through editors. So the editors will be able to penalbate it and shape it and become what you want it to be. Coming back to why did I write, or why do I of late like writing? It's because I've discovered that we always complain, and then about the public discourse that is actually disadvantaging us. when we are not putting a form, our own narrative as to who are we and how we want to move forward. And you will notice that in my book, there were a lot of temptations that were there to write as well about the political part of, of the church in that history. But I've consciously decided to tell only the good stories so that we become aware of who we are. Because most of the time we are talking about, we are complaining and we do not put our stories forward in order for people. And you have now this complaining and this and that. We have not been treated this way. We have not been covered, and this has not. And yet we've got an opportunity to actually do and close that gap. And even the book, the second edition, to what to the first edition, what I'll be writing, my efforts are more concentrating on telling what is good and not to give away my space and complaining. Of course, there will be areas where I would have to say the background as a matter of background, but focusing more on what is really good. And therefore, my writing is to make my humble contribution to the narrative that says Black people are like any other people. Black stories are like any other stories. And I don't want to say this, what I'm going to say. Something is growing in me.
Yes.
But actually, there was a reason for the international and total onslaught on the Black people. Because when you dig deep, it's not about the Black people. I think it's about the God. It's about the God that we serve. Taking the history of how Africa was, in the introduction of my book, I talk about Ethiopia being part of the Garden of Eden. And after that, I've discovered a lot. And I really want to believe that the fight against Black people is a fight against God. It's a fight against the roots, where we come from. And because the information that is coming is very, very, very amazing. And space should be given for such information. Efforts, energy should be given so that it may elevate that, it may put that to the fore and complaining, because that would not take us anywhere. Of course, we can there and there as a background, but I think we should use our efforts more positively than negative.
Thank you so much for all those answers. I think the nice thing about this conversation when we're looking is that all of you are coming from different perspectives, different emphases, even sometimes addressing, for example, Beauty is a book talking to young women and so on. Another writer writes from Xhosa, and another from a historical perspective. All of these ultimately produce some sort of a big, beautiful picture of different perspectives and experiences that people are going through. So thank you so much for that. Now, I want to get to the process of writing. There's someone who's listening out there. Sorry, let me just, oh man. I didn't realize that there was someone who was waiting. There's someone out there who is feeling like they're ready to write. They have a story to tell. They have something to contribute, as you have said. But now they are scared. It may be that some have written bits and pieces here and there. Now, I just want us to go to the process of writing. You did say better that it's not always easy. Sometimes it's lonely. But I remember one time we were in East London, when you were writing this book. In fact, you were doing a research on your book. And we went to the laboratory, not the lab, the library. And they gave you these old newspapers that were photographed and put in those things. It was a fascinating thing to see. Newspapers from 1908, 18 this and so on. But I just marveled at the process that you were going through before you even put something on paper. Maybe let's start with you. Just what process did you go through in terms of writing the book that you wrote? And then we can come to the other colleagues. What regiment do you have? What is behind what we get?
When it comes to that, I always say God tricked me, you know, because he showed me what was in front of me, what I would have to write, only to realize that no, he is throwing me in deep waters, and because he keeps on, you know, like a bait, you know, to say, you know, this what you're reading, you can actually look at here. I spent a lot of time in the archives. For instance, as you have mentioned, where I managed to get the story. And by the way, I'm told that if I wanted some more, I should go to the Pretoria Library, where I hope that one day I would go. And also the process in terms of writing, and then you become stuck and say, then there's a gap here. What do I do? And that would send you to the archives in Pretoria, in Cape Town, Roland Street, where you would have to, for instance, on Richard Moko. I didn't know much about Richard Moko. All that I knew was that, you know, in that family, their father, you know, was a pioneer. That's how Adventism was brought here. So I wanted to know more. Even the family members didn't know more than what they told me. So I had to go to the archives. If you go to the archives at Roland Street, Cape Town, and you ask for Richard Moko, you get the file. Because remember those days, there were no computers where you could write. So all the information was in the offices, and after 20 years, they would be transferred to a depository. So I had to go there. I had to learn more about who he was and when he was born and the estate that he left, and then the court cases that were there that led me to go to magistrate court in East London to search more. And then one process would actually lead you to another. So the process of writing also involves research. And at some point, you are able to you become stuck. You become stuck for a couple of months, and you don't know how to close the gap. And then you search, and then eventually God would lead you to somewhere. So the process of writing, it's not a very easy process, I must say, especially that involves research. And it's just like a sermon. Sometimes you would, maybe can tell to this. Just like a sermon, you take a Bible, you read the verse, and you think the verse says this, and the Holy Spirit says, no, it does not say this. It will deliver this kind of message. So it was the same case with me. When I thought I was going to write something, and then more and more information would actually, that coming through the results of research, and it would actually lead me to take a totally different angle that I thought from what I thought I would take. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much. We're going to go over because there's the part of research, you know, where you collect this information and you put it here. There's also the part of actually putting it on paper to write it, to make sense, to be able to even go forward. But I think the other colleagues want to say something, Ben. Let's start with you.
Okay. I wanted to say something so we don't have a name, so I'm going to call him, I think it's a he, Car Audio.
Yes. His name is Alois.
Yes, because many people have that that belief that I'm not a writer, but I've got a story to tell. So how can I? So I wanted to contribute to that. I think my colleagues have already said something, but I've also, the one suggestion I would give my brother would be that you find someone who doesn't mind you do the talking, and you get someone who can do the writing. One of my contributors in the Theatre of Grace, for example, she kept hitting a metal block at a particular point. She would write her story, and she would get to a place where she just can't write beyond that. Every time she wants to continue, she just gets tired, something else comes up. And I knew that I wanted her story because I knew it before. So I said to her, it's fine, put it in a voice note. Tell the story, don't type it, tell the story, and then I will transcribe it and put it in text, and then I will send it to you to read, and then and put in whatever you feel is then missing. So that's also, I think this is the beauty that technology offers us, that we might have hard copy books, and I love that. I love the smell of books. I love the idea of paper in front of me. But technology allows these books now, they can be in audio form. They can be in soft format as well. They get typed, they get put out there. Of course, it's better for them to be typed. You can go from a typed and then transcribe, but it's difficult to have a book only in the soft format. It's either a voice or a video. But if you believe you have a story and someone can benefit from your story, or you want to tell your story, then find someone to whom you can tell that story. So you do the telling, they do the transcribing, or they do the conversion of that story. You know, there are video illustrations now where people are telling stories, but in the form of video. So that would be my answer or my contribution to that question.
Wow.
But in terms of my process, and I often say this when people say, how do you write a book? I say, just write, write. And the one tool I found that helps me is the phone. Because in the past, you would need to have pen and paper. And there are people that still like that. They like to take a pen and sit down and write and write and write. But in the era where we've got phones and we are quite busy, I say, keep your book in your phone until you are at the stage where you are now ready to put it in a computer and get typed. And you can, because as you're going around, as you're driving around, as you are sitting in a queue at the doctor's offices, you are busy thinking and processing this thing that you want to say. So if you've got your phone with you, you put your thoughts there, you put your chapters there, and then when you've got proper time to sit down and put the thoughts on paper, at least you've got the skeleton. Because you were putting, because sometimes God, as you are going around the streets, in my case of East London, God is throwing nuggets, he's throwing ideas, or you see something happening and it inspires a thought that you can link to something in your book or in your story or in your sermon. You know, when one stands there and you present a sermon, so much has inspired that sermon. It didn't come up when you were standing there. So I often say to people, put your thoughts down. If you like, you can have a small little book that you are walking around with, but I find the phone working very, very well. In fact, and this is now technology allowing this, I have Google Drive on my phone. So I have my notes on my Google Drive that I can type in my Google Drive, and those notes I can also access in my computer. So I don't even need to send that thing back and forth. So I have Google Drive on my phone, but I've also got Google Drive on my computer. So I can just download it wherever and contribute. I can access it wherever. So technology has made it slightly easier, the process. But writing does involve thinking. You have to sit and think. You have to sit and think. You have to sit and arrange your thoughts. You have to sit and listen as well. And I speak now as a Christian writer, that often what we say has been inspired by God. You will get no inspiration if you do not sit and spend time with God. So one of my best times for me, God downloads ideas for me in my quiet time, and that quiet time is early morning. 4 o'clock in the morning, you wake up and you take your paper and your pen and then write down. Then last point, we read, we write, and we say something from the abundance of our knowledge. If you are going to be a writer, you also have to be a reader, I say. You've got to go and read more, because you also get to read how people are writing, who is writing about this, and how, you also got to spend time read widely, but obviously read things that interest you, and then you also learn how people are phrasing that which you want to say. It's difficult to just write without reading.
I'm tempted to come just after Icharugas.
Okay.
Because he said something brilliant here. But before I comment on that thing, Icharugas liberally for 4 o'clock and must make sure that I vote at 4 o'clock. It doesn't wake up too much at 4 o'clock. I went to Ellen G. White house where Ellen G. White and James White had separate rooms.
Yes.
And I asked the reason why did they have separate rooms? They said, no, it's because Ellen G. White, when the vision comes and then she wants to write, so she must quickly jump without any disturbance from James White. I hope that but let me come in.
I'm going to my house, I never know.
Let me come in to Lendo Achetileyo of recording what is in your mind. You know, I believe if you were to ask me what is the best way of writing a book, I would actually put it in 3 ways. If you are able to stand and record yourself and say everything and how, I think that would produce the best book ever, because you flow. And the second method, of course, is handwriting, because you are faster as you think. And typing, I think, is too slow, and you may end up losing some of the thoughts. So I think what she has suggested, that of audio, is the best way of writing the book, because you are flowing and you are able to demonstrate, and you've got your language. And if you don't have the English, you can even demonstrate it in your own indigenous language. It's a course. And when you start to write it from that audio, I tell you, it would be the best book than that one that you would have started by writing. That's what I've experienced in terms of writing. I just wanted to say something on that audio part.
All right. Come get from this one.
Very, very brilliant. Brilliant Gakul on the way. Just have your phone, everything. But what I can add on that is that get to a culture of writing. Write something every day, even if it's a page or a paragraph, but have something to write, whether you're writing or in terms of using your phone, as she suggested, that you just talking to the phone. Each time when that actually thought comes, you just keep writing or keep talking to your phone. That and you have time to sit down, you can rearrange everything that you've written. I remember the time when I was like this 31-day Ukula, 31-day devotional book. You know, this is 31 subjects that I'm talking about, 31 subjects to talk about. So I need to focus on each one of them. So if now today I'm focusing on time, so I need to keep reading about time, what other writers have said about time, get deeper into the knowledge of time, and then when you subject until. But my point is that you focus on each point at a time. So just imagine when you have to write a devotional book for the whole year. That is 366 topics. So you need to be able to say that, how are you going to do this one? Are you going to focus on one theme per month? Or are you just going to take any subject, anytime? You know, so these are the things that you need to think about when you're writing. So it's very much important that you know what you want to write about, so that you can focus.
Okay.
Yes, you don't know what you're writing about, just keep writing. Then at the right time, and then you're going to be able to say, now I know that I want to write about something, and then you keep focusing on that particular thing that you're writing about.
Okay, thank you so much. I will allow for people to maybe, our listeners and viewers, to maybe make a comment verbally by asking. You know, some people may be able to put questions by writing, but if there's anyone who wants to ask a question, feel free to say that. You can show by a raise of hand if I can see you, but if I cannot see you, there's a facility where you can show by hand. Okay, I can see a hand there. Ma'am, welcome. That you want, or even a comment you want to make. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Chairperson, and all the writers. I think I'm blessed to be part of this platform. Thank you very much for allowing me to come in.
Thank you.
But I am humbly requesting that this should not be a once-off. This is so important and so complex and so diverse a topic. It has to be a series, not a once-off.
Yes.
Because all of this information that I've been exposed to is about helping me understand what I should do if I want to write at my age. That's the first comment.
Yes, ma'am.
The second comment, we must begin, well, I'm considering myself as part of this group.
Yes, you are.
to invite Africans.
Yes.
I can sponsor one without fear.
Oh, thank you.
Especially those, all of us anyway, the languages are all important. But abababala ngesixhosa nesisuthu nesintoni. I'm particularly proud of them, especially in the wake of our languages that are disappearing and in the process impacting negatively on our cultures. Abantwana bethu ngoku hayi kude kuthiwe anconywe ngokukhumsha umbone uba uyonqena uthetha isiXhosa. So those who are writing in isiXhosa or Sesotho, really they are helping us as a nation ukuthi sihlale nathi sibonakala basikhona. But the biggest challenge is to, especially for the generation ekhoyo, sibenza njani abantwana bethu babe interested. How do we make sure that whatever message we are communicating through our language reaches our children and our grandchildren? Because abazifundi incwadi zesiXhosa, masithethi inyani. And we are beginning to learn into about even universities, isiXhosa is being phased out. Which begs me to ask the question, who over this, where are we heading to? It's a worry. That's the second thing. The third thing, Beauty has really covered a lot of what I wanted to raise. Beauty Kotel and Yakbona. On the issue of the West writing a lot, I think let's take something from there. You know, I've written up Ukuti, in America, every experience is worth documenting. When they go into individuals who are and that book becomes a hit. Yeah, one?
Yes.
Tina, we have so many stories. And I'm not talking, well, they know I'm a politician. I'm not talking politics, I'm talking in general. There is so much.
So much, yes.
That we can write about, but askakwazi ncam. Now, ndifuna ke ngokuthi Chair, without laboring my points.
Yes, ma'am.
I think there is a need to demystify writing because sicinga into yoba ubhala yeyona nto yakhe yanzima. Uthi ke uPhudi sine stories othetha ndithi ke mna ke Beauty xa ndisandisa le point yakho demystify writing and link it to storytelling because writing is telling a story.
Yes.
And that chair is a topic on its own.
Telling us
Let's not discuss it because that would encourage a lot of people to write. Yabona ubunongena pha engqushwa kula mixaxa ibithethwa ngo216. There are so many stories pha kwabatata bangwevu bangazange baye esikolweni that are so rich about us and who we are. About the history yasemqwashweni athetha ngayo. You know, there are so many people abaza kunika the detail which you would never get from any book. So I'm saying if you demystify and make people appreciate, but the issue ke ngokuba sithetha izinto kwezi platform. How do we communicate all of these brilliant ideas here? So that's the second one. The last one, Chair, which or maybe second last.
Okay.
Ngugi wa Thiong'o.
Yes.
There's a book that he wrote, Decolonizing the Mind. He's writing this book in a secluded place, uyedwa, and then you know it's a bed and breakfast kind of arrangement. And then this lady who is a Kikuyu person, a tribe that Ngugi belongs to, comes to serve breakfast or whatever. And then abuze lo mama ungubani tata asichaza uNgugi athi wenza ntoni umsebenzi wakhe athi ningumbhali. Athi but azange mnandi ndiyibone into oyibhalileyo.
Sure.
And the reason angayibonanga, it's because it was written in English. And this mama ubhalwa ngaye ngeculture yakhe but akayazi into ebhalwe nguNgugi. That's when Ngugi decided and the relevance of that topic, decolonizing, yaqala kuye uba maka-decolonize abhale ngelanguage yakhe.
That's a powerful.
So it's more, I'm sure I'm not logical, but
now
it's
you
more
are
to endorse the very first point Ebendi raised about writing in African languages. Lastly, Chair,
yes,
lastly, in writing, in an element of creativity. Beauty is one of those who are very, very creative. Shakespeare, uchi some are born and some aspire. Now, to enhance information, who want to document it, who are not as creative as Beauty. Masbancedise nge-principles of writing at some point. Let us get the principles of writing and then present a platform so that sizohamba and kwazi ba uvule uthini na wena. Unfortunately, I was a bit late. Kaloku ndingulo mntu we-technology ndiyazi ugqitha and kwazi uconnecta on time. Otherwise, this is very, very rich.
Thank you.
I have not said all of that I wanted to say. Everybody has spoken here. I've taken a bit. I was taking notes copiously. And please keep on keeping on, guys. And again, I'm one of those who would want to buy your books. And now I'm going to follow you. Lastly, from a Christian perspective, I'm not sure if you have come across the book that is a dialogue between the Dalai Lama and Bishop Tutu. It's entitled The Book of Joy. The Book of Joy.
Okay.
It's a very, very informed, not about my church, but about spirituality, which is the essence of us as Christians. Sometimes we lose that.
Mama siyabulela.
Nkosi kakhulu ndibamba ngazibini.
Sitha babamba ngazibini ngalamava.
Awusimka ngokuntombi.
Hayi, ndimka ndihle lapha kaloku ndibaleka nobuso bam ndiqhawuza lapha.
Zaphinda sesine-arrangement uzaphinda abuye next week where we'll bring her and someone else to come and talk about her life. So, ma'am, thank you so much for that. We appreciate it so much. All right. I think I don't know. I don't see any other hand here. Is there any other hand that want to comment? All right, because I want us to move.
I can come in.
Okay.
There is a hand, Kachi.
Oh, okay. Come in. Okay, there are two hands. There is Nunzikelelo Jas, and then there's Bomoy. I don't know who came first, but go ahead, Kamat.
Okay, please put in your spectacles. I can see you struggling to see.
Okay, so
yeah. You know, firstly, I must say, you know, I'm really inspired, firstly, Kajeni, by the initiative you've taken on this.
Thank you.
As I'm talking with you right now, I am on Microsoft project schedule, doing my writing schedule. There's a book that got thrown into my mind. As I'm listening on the other side, I'm drafting a schedule as to what do I want to achieve when. And also, you know, this issue of writing. I think we as Black Africans, and I will say that unapologetically so, that we must take it upon ourselves and do it. I must also highlight the fact, and I'm very glad that Uma Musonjika is here. You know, there's a book by Uferwood, Kennedy written a very nice book about architects of poverty. You know, good people, the reason we've got Afrikaans books all over us, yet Afrikaners are a minority, it was not by accident. There is a commitment that needs to be there at a personal level where people need to do things. But at a collective, at a corporate level, there needs to be other commitment so as to support the individual efforts. Otherwise, individual efforts will just drown and take very long to be there. And then we occupy our space. That's why you've got Afrikaner books all over that. Unfortunately, Mamusonjika, I have not seen a political will to promote that after 26 years, whereby we've been in power as Black people. I have got a guy by the name of Ututo Kumkwai. He has assisted his community. More than 24 books have been written from his community. You know what? The reason you don't know it, we are talking now with the Eastern Cape government. People support this guy. There is this thing. This is Heritage Month. I must tell you, it is falling on deaf ears because our political leaders do not have a will of promoting this. The reason in each and every bookshop you get an Afrikaans book is not by accident. There is a collective and a corporate support for such. But you know what? In spite of that, Africa shall rise. We must take it upon ourselves. We must make sure that we will do the little, even when the odds are against us. When we do not receive even support from all of that, we will do it. And I must also say that I wish that our writers who are here, which you have mentioned, to write, it is also expensive. There is some money you must put in. Unless you just want to write your book and be there in Ofimvaba, you understand? There are a lot of books right now which have been written by people, but they do not go into the mainstream. Let me tell an example. Even the narrative of South Africa, the books which are studied in grade 3, grade 5, grade 5, they are not written by Black people. They do not put in the correct narrative of black people here in South Africa. You know, where they put it, and I must say it honestly so, they make all our kids to think that the only people who struggled for this country was only Nelson Mandela. You understand? And it's a wrong narrative, but little by sure, we must make a difference. You cannot tell me why we do not have books that talk about the true history of South Africa, how things happened 26 years into our democracy. You cannot tell me that. There's many black people who've written books. I know even Utatoba Wam wrote even in isiXhosa, but they're not fun. They're not getting into the mainstream. They're not getting that because in the Department of Education, there is no will to promote a correct narrative by black South Africans about their history in this day and age. Is that high?
Okay. All right. Awunikezela uSister Ntsikelelo. She also has her hand up. Over to you, Sister Tsiki.
Ndiyabulala for this opportunity that you gave me. To me, I think it's a question which has been hlakulelwa by the previous speakers. But my question is, what is the experience of the panelists in terms of publishing their books? And what would they advise in terms of how to publish a book, how to, promote the book that you have published to the public, so that the information just doesn't remain not discussed?
Thank you so much for that. I think in question Yako, it has actually led us to the next section that we're going to be talking about. The last part we're going to be discussing was the issue of the challenges that they might be there. The challenges or even issues like publishing, marketing, sales. Because sometimes you can write a book and that book can sit somewhere in the back of a garage or something of that sort and never goes out. Sometimes we write out of passion without thinking all through all those processes, you know. So we've got to look at that and sort of say, how did the guys who are here now, how did they think about that? What do they think about those challenges? They can also talk about any other challenges that you may find. For example, when we were conversing, talking about with the three of us previously, planning this session, one of the things that came out clearly from all three of you was the fact that from the market, from the people that read the books, there was a demand, even from older people in the rural areas, demand for the books to be written in the indigenous languages. For now, because all of you are Xhosa speakers, but we're just talking generally across all indigenous languages of South Africa. So the point is, how are you dealing with that challenge? I heard Ubele talking about the process of translating, but sometimes you've got to pay someone to do that. Transcribing, you've got to pay someone for those kinds of things. So can you just talk about those challenges, the marketing, publishing, sales, and the issues that I talked about? And then, since I'll touch this round, Yabo Mama, and let's wheel it back to you. Please make your notes, and then we'll come back to you. Okay.
Can I jump in here, Rapet?
Yes.
And the reason I'm jumping in is I've got another commitment calling, so
sure.
I will need I will disappear soon.
Yeah.
And then I'll catch up with you.
Before you disappear, please share how people can get hold of you and your books and everything of that sort. Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much. I will also type in the comment section my details.
Okay.
But before I get to that, there's so much. I'm appreciating the contribution from the callers, from Mamson Jika, Dad Kamata, I think, and many others. And people must not be afraid to use the chat on the side, because time might not allow everybody to get to speak audibly. But if you type in the chat, we get to keep your contribution, and we can use it as we go forward with this project. In terms of publishing and things like that, but before I go to that, I think Uyemyem mentioned something about how difficult it is. Umama Sonjika spoke about the decolonization and how difficult it is for us to push. I believe that let me use the word struggle, because I'm looking at a different one, needs a champion. If we, as for example, Xhosa speakers, or if we as Black people are committed to putting our voice out there, then it is not going to help us to expect somebody from out there to come and fetch us so that we can go there. But it's going to be incumbent upon us, one, to organize ourselves, to give ourselves a structure, to give ourselves a voice, to give ourselves a mission, and to give ourselves almost like a modus operandi. The Afrikaners, you are right. I work with and for them, my friend, Universiteit van Stellenbosch. There's a structure there. There's structure there that involves business, that involves academia, that involves the church, that involves communities to say, okay, this is the message we want to put out there. This is how we want to do it. And so we become strategic in the manner in which we do it. And one of the challenges with us at the moment, let me say us as Black people, but certainly even us as the church, as writers in the church, we are all sitting in silos, doing our own thing in our own different corners. I think this is the first time, Brapet, and maybe this might grow, and I love that, this might morph into a whole organization that can assist us. And so each person writes their own book in their own corner, and they fight and they make their way through, and then the book gets somewhere, and of course also the need to feed your children as well. So somewhere while we are busy with the book, you might have the project because you also have to feed, you've got to feed. So we need to just carry this conversation forward so that we can find a way to organize our voice and organize ourselves such that we can achieve what we're looking for. We can put our stories out there in our different languages. But of course, the issue of language is challenging, because while we are Africans and we want to put our African voice, we also live in the global world, and nobody has opened our eyes to that like our children have. Our children are thinking globally. I'm coming, sorry. Our children are thinking globally. Our children are operating in a global space. Also, even, let me tell you about my book, the Theatre of Grace message. My mission for myself is to make grace trend. I wanted to make God's grace trend. I wanted to make God's grace fashionable. And even as I wrote it, I knew that I'm not just targeting the Xhosa market. I want the Xhosa market, but my target is for the book to reach everywhere. So the book is in Botswana, the book is in Namibia, the book is in Lesotho, the book is in the UK. The book is, I'm trying to get the book as far and wide as possible. But I took somebody from Kwalanga, Obnyoma, Kulpakwalanga, what Mamchao, Saifuna Natlengot, in our own language. So now, even as you think about writing, you think, okay, this is what we want. We want it to go broadly. Therefore, we can't run away from English. But there's a base that you maybe want to cover as well. It might not be, won't go too many people there, but there's a base that you want to cover. So these are some of the things that we need to think about. So publishing, we self-published because of the expense involved in having to then find a publisher and markets. And so when you self-publish, you then do everything yourself. It becomes a project that you work on, from the marketing to the design of the cover, to the printing, to the sales. So we're selling the books from the boot of the car. But that process has worked much less costly than finding a publisher. But of course, some people then, they might not see the book as professional as it could be. For example, if you want to go and put the book in some of these international platforms, it needs to come via a certain publishing company. If I want my book, let me not mention bookshops, but some of the well-known bookshops, if it must go there, it must go via that particular publisher. But if I put it through that publisher, I can't afford to do that. And then the last thing that I want to say before I then keep quiet is that for me as a writer, and somebody out there who also wants to write, be committed to the message before the money. If you're writing to make money, it's going to be a long, long, long process before you get there. And my fear, you might not even get there in time. But if you are committed to say, I've got something to say. So everywhere you walk in, I've got something to say. And I believe that this thing that I want to say is important to be said. You get committed to that. And so even as you write the book, even as you market the book, even as you push the book, even as you share the book, even as you stand and have opportunity to talk about the book, you are sharing the message of the book. And then we need platforms such as these to help each other with those messages. The money comes, but it doesn't come at the beginning.
Okay, wow. Thank you so much, Bulel Chawegas, for that. Masiye Cape Town, Bele, go perfume the funding, and then you see a good class.
Yeah, it's a long process. Just to catch on that one.
Yes.
When I started to write, I remember I had to approach the publisher. So if for this,
yeah,
I get 4% royalties.
4%.
Yonke imali iyakupublish.
Yo.
I only get 4%.
Okay.
Yeah, 4%. And then for this one, I get 2%.
Yo.
So you can imagine. And now coming to this one also I approached a publisher, and I get 12%. So I don't pay anything for any preparation of the book. Everything is by publisher, marketing and everything. And then at the end, when they sales, when they get sales, and I get only 12% for this one.
Yes.
Right. And then for Ukula, it's like a self-publishing, but I approached a publisher that is black-owned publishing house. So for this one, I get 100%.
Okay, wow.
Because I paid for everything, for all the processes of publishing. I paid for everything, for the book cover. I paid for everything. So for this one, 100% is a book.
Wow.
So if I sell this book, I get 100%. But of course, now just nothing. And then to click saying I get 12% without USAS.
Without
right?
SARS.
Yeah. From the 12% in Zamfman, I must also pay SARS. You understand? Now, for this one, if I get my 100% for this one, and also, of course, get for it is now if I get my 100%, the audition will start because all the expenses this number one. So it's a process in the that you need to approach Abandon, right, who are actually going to lead you into publishing your book.
Well, we've learned something today because I think this business side of writing deserves a session on its own. You know, I remember listening on the radio to a lady called Christina Kunda. I think she used to be a lawyer, but I think she was involved in some sort of a publishing thing. And perhaps we need to bring people like those so that they can take us through how we can help writers to be able to benefit out of their work, you know, rather than all the money just going to all these middle people. Keras, did you say something before Mama? Did I give you a chance?
Okay, Keras, thanks for the opportunity.
Yes.
I
realize that we've passed our time, so we're gonna be winding down. But I do want us to make sure that we've covered all the questions. But go ahead.
I think let me be as short as much as possible because I see Uma Musonjika wanted to respond to Uyem on some of the issues there. But fortunately, some of the issues have already been covered by Ichawekazi Kwakunye Nomfundisi. Also, whilst talking about the money part of it, you also have the issue of content. For instance, I wanted my book to be published by one of the church publishers based in London. I think it's Scarborough, something like that. Yes. And then I wrote to them, and that they said, okay, fine, come with the copy. We'll see as to whether we like the content and whether we want to publish it or not. So it means that also in terms of content, the publishers determine. To an extent that they determine as to whether you should change the narrative or not. So then I said, okay, fine, let me not go to them. And then I went to SAU trying to check as to whether they would be able, they could not. And So it's become a very serious problem when it comes to publishing, both in terms of financial and challenges as well as content challenges. And I know, for instance, that there's one pastor, Umfundisi Omazionam, and Mbua came to me the other day talking about that pastor. Yo, that thing is Sisono, cannot even control the content that he has written. The publishers have got a right to say where it's going to be sold, who sold, and so forth. Translation and everything. The publishers have taken the full control. We need publishers that would be able to at least come to our rescue in terms of be lenient when it comes to content, to know that this is the content that, and we've got the right to the content that we write, and also and be financially, negotiate in terms of finance and everything. Because self-publishing is good because you control everything. But I think when you're for the publisher, your book becomes more credible in terms of citation, and yeah. So that's all that I can talk about in terms of publishing. Well, other things in terms of language and in terms of other things, I think let me just leave because we're running out of time, so that I may give that.
Okay. There have been people who have asked also for your book to be translated, I understand.
Yes, they asked for my book to be translated. By that time, I was very tired. And I could not. And one that has written the book will tell you that no, I'm tired. I did approach someone, but who was busy. But eventually, E.G. White Center at Hellerbeck, at the time of Pastor Sokuba, wanted that to be translated. I am Bua, translated. As a result, now there is a Xhosa version of the book. I do have I am Bua has got the Xhosa version of the book. But I would suggest that if one is tired by the time he finishes the book, maybe he does not have more energy, is to approach somebody to translate that on your behalf.
Okay, all right. Masiye Mama Usonjika, and then can disafund questions after that, so that we can get to the wrap up by answering those questions, and then we can close the session. Beauty has sent a message to say her apologies, she had to go, and so she's gone already, but she has left her details here. For the copies of the book, Theatre of Grace, she can be contacted. There's a number there. The email address is beautykotela@gmail, beauty.kotela, Kotela, @gmail.com. All right, she has that, and then her number 073-334-2272. Now, Alois, you can mute your phone there. Thank you. Yes, sir. We are okay, sure.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to first give you this jigsaw puzzle.
Oh.
All of you as writers. Umadoda uthethe ngokukhula. And umbhale ngesixhosa ukhula. And ukhula uyafunwa nguwo wonke umuntu. It is valuable information or message that should be spread across. So that talks to translation, and that in itself, if sithatha kakuhle, could create jobs. It must not be seen as a challenge per se. It is a positive challenge. But the issue then, who pays for that translation when Madoda is getting 12% of the royalties, which is taxed, meaning that he's not making much. And I'm not talking, I'm just taking Madoda as a mfundisi. But what I'm saying, I'm just taking him as an example. I think it applies to all of us, those who have retained. Now, what I'm picking up from this conversation, fortunately, I was one of the fortunate people who were involved in the writing of the arts and culture policy of this country. And we had 6 commissions. One of those commissions was about writing. And what I'm hearing now, there is no initiative to promote writing, especially writing by Africans. This is the call that I'm getting from the speakers here. Especially uYemyem, we raise a very strongly Lord. Andizuyiphendula inye into endizawuyenza. Ndizawucela nindivumele that we invite uWally Serote.
Okay.
Wally is an internationally acclaimed writer, but Wally is also a poet laureate who is part of the National Department of Arts and Culture. So Wally was the key person in writing that policy. He was our national coordinator. What I'm doing, Uwal is going to respond to all of this, the business aspect of writing, what is government's responsibility, everything that we are worried about. He will be able to respond to those. Not only respond, but take them up with the ministry.
Okay.
Because my sense is that the provinces sometimes are limited in all respects in dealing with these matters. So as long as I'm sorry to say this, it's not a very nice admission, but it is like that. Can I go further, Nditi? The reason being that arts and culture and creativity is not necessarily very well understood by politicians. So there's that seriously, there's that we struggled when we were heading land within the ANC. It's not well understood. It was it dreamers, you know. So I'm saying Wally will be best placed, and I want us to maybe when I collate a report and some of the issues that have been raised here.
Yes.
And forward them to me in an email. I will give them to Wally.
Okay.
All right. Motivate as to why he must be part of this platform.
Okay.
And in the context of that, I'm echoing Elali Zulka Beauty Elite, the platform Maikule instead, and maybe to become an organization.
Okay.
That's my first comment. So Bentemos Tina has complained. This is one other thing. Everybody else, we artists, may complain. I've never really heard the voice of writers saying we are not getting any support. The complainer silap as complainers gone in. So if we communicate what has been said on this platform, see communicate Wally, that will be the beginning of us letting our voice being heard. Because we will be presenting to him challenges that confront especially African writers today. And giving him a chance to be aware that there are people out there, there are budding writers out there who want to be supported. And then I can engage him.
Okay.
Yeah, he was my commander at the time.
All right.
But I'm almost guaranteed that he will be very excited to hear this. Okay. I'm almost guaranteed. But I can't think for him. He's an old man now. on ezazinto ze publication, there's a lot that needs to happen to transform ezazinto. Who is there? Umadoda ufumana 100% kwi-black ntontontoni. That tells a story in itself. Kwezinye ngo-12 ngobani. So how do we transform that platform publication? Because it depends on who is there. It's not happening only in writing, it's also happening with artists. As record. As recorded in those. Exactly, same thing, they rip them off. Yeah, but so because they're not transformed, it's the same people that have been there donkey years ago. And they're just making money from this government by pretending that they are promoting Abantu. In the process, they're ripping them off of the little money that they would be making. So I think I'm almost done. I just want to leave you with this question. How do we, which is a vexing question, how do we as writers, as African writers, become relevant to the English-speaking world? Because if sizobhala sibhalela amaXhosa qha, then that's a limitation on its own. And yet we could communicate that message across, as I had indicated later. I think it's a vexing question. I think it's a question that has been there. As I related the story Skangugi Watyong, Ngugi somehow ukwazile yena, and now translate into so many languages. How do we get to that point? And maybe that's a point that we could answer if we were to become an organization, because it's about translation. Yes. So translation iyodwa iyaba yi-organization ezaba nabantu abathetha languages, is French, isintoni. So it's a long-term vision, but it's still a question. And I would be very happy if we win Wally to come here, Wally ayiphendule lo question.
Yes, definitely. I will.
How will the government assist us to have our works translated into various languages, so that we can, when you write, man, you can't be getting 12% madod and call yourself a writer. I mean, Americans are very rich through writing, and writing one book. Tina pa sengo 12%. Ay madoda usoza ungqongqa mntakwethu nasana. Isingqongqo eso.
Makaze lomfo soncedakala.
Zizothetha. Thank you so much.
Makeze man, volunteer. So what I'm going to do is I'll link up no Pet, and then Pet uyayazi email address yam. We can work on it immediately.
Okay, all right. I will also follow you. Now, you will be happy to know that at least, although I said up in Venkam is a pressure, but what young was at least decolonizing the mind and whip not my child. At least I've got those ones here. But thank you so much, I just want to read some of the things that have been said here. One of the questions that came from Umteki, where I think you somehow alluded to it, especially Kuba when your framework was within the church, as much as we're talking general. He was asking whether there have been, you have received some support in terms of your material being used in the institutions and all of that. You can talk about that whilst I'm looking at reading these questions.
Well, I I do have my books in the shelves of Heidelberg College.
Okay.
And then I do have my book in the shelves of University of Fort Hare. Also, of course, others get them directly from me, those who want to master guides to get the history of the church. Yeah.
Okay.
And but in terms of really support, you know, the church comes and wants support, I think you should just forget about that one. All that should drive you is the passion. Because initially I thought the church would be behind me in terms of even writing and how to assist me, but I've discovered that no, they are not there. They've got other priorities that they want to look at. So all that you've got to do, you should know that when you start writing a book, whether it's spiritual and you're on your own.
Okay. It's 4 o'clock, people, and I'd like to appreciate the fact that people stayed this long. I just want to go through some of the comments that I've missed. Ma'am Sojita, she says, Vuyiseka Keza, I think she's in Cape Town. Hello, ma'am. She says, you made a good point about the youth not engaging and owning isiXhosa as their mother tongue or main language. Kudala, bekulula kusithetha ngoba isiXhosa ngoba izifundo zesikolo nentetho in general bezingangqongwanga. Namhlanje kufundwa ngesiNgesi. As the youth matures, they understand their heritage more. The interest to delve deeper into our language sets in as we mature and understand our identity and heritage. So it is fantastic that we have books written in our languages. Yes, we can lament the lack of usage of our language, but we have to take present-day realities into account, to deliberately take our children to English-speaking schools, therefore making the use of language stronger, but it is a battle that is not lost with the youth. I think we get the gist of the message. I won't be able to read all of it, but she says the battle is not lost with the youth as they need time to identify their space in the world, and this is where heritage plays a crucial role. Thank you so much, Mama. Umamtika Pakati, Uti, thank you so much for this eye, ear, and mind-opening session. Can't wait to write in isiXhosa. And then Sia, in order for Black writers to make inroads in this place is to first be organized. Once we are organized, we're able to appeal to funders, create marketing platforms for writers. We will be able to influence the Department of Education and Business. We need to change the narrative that people must look for us. Let us create a space on our own and present an offering to business, government, NGOs, which is the effective way we can achieve traction. All right? In the name of beauty, I think there's a message that I missed. There's a message I think he has already mentioned that in his talk when he was talking. Then there's Zomtsi, uthi mandibulele ngalomsindleko asiwuthathi kancinci thina basakhasayo uzuko uba umfanele singayolala namabali emlonyeni. All right? And then uthi, thanks Mama for your honesty. We are good in policy writing, but action dololo. And then for those people who want to get books from Madoda Tinginto, 074 947 4026. You can call and send messages there. And then WhatsApp 082 676 1579. And the email yake is dingsmd, D-I-M, so D-I-N-G, and smd@yahoo.com. I mean, anyone who still didn't get me carefully, I will be able to send this information to you. Kwakhona buya uzomtsi uthi yo andikwazi ukulinda nami ukubhala ngesiXhosa lentapeti yabo uyatshiseka umfowethu phaya kanye usisi andinsekanga. Then incwadi kaHlanga Mafani ethi from Genesis Mama ne? Okay.
Yeah.
Ethi Genesis to Germination. You can get it from hmafani@gmail.com, but the number yake It's 082-577-5717. And then uSthembiso Khoyi, much as I came in late, Pat, the discussion is awesome. Looking forward to others that are coming. God bless. Thank you, man. Thank you so much, Terete Bule. And I want to thank our authors and writers for sparking this discussion. Clearly, it's a big discussion. There are so many others like you out there who are facing all these challenges. But thank you for putting pen to paper and putting the work out there. It's a start, it's a big start, but I hope all of us who are listening are motivated to say anyone, any gender, any age group, anyone can put something together. And I'm glad that you've outlined how we can do that easily by recording, by making sure that we go to people that can help us to write and edit our stories. Really, thank you so much for that. We will come back, we'll take up the issue of Professor Walisa Rote, and then we bring him here so that he can explain, and then we invite more writers to come. Thank you so much again. I won't give you any chance to wrap up. I think because of time, we've already eaten into people's time. We really appreciate it. Thank you. May God bless. So Tibana again next week, and wait for the week to receive the poster. We've got two very, very important guests that we're going to have and subjects that we're going to be dealing with next Sunday at 2 o'clock to 3:30. Thank you. All the best.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All the best. Thank you.
All right. Bule.
Well done, Pat.
Right.
All
right.
Bye,
Thank
Ted.
you. Bule, Kosma. Cheers.
Bye, Ted.
Bye-bye. Bye. Bule lamna. Nangam so. I think Khoyi is talking. I can't hear you. Thank you. Bye.